Alright, so we've downloaded our information, our data from the GIS website, and we've got our footprints, our contour lines, and some other information, curves and surfaces and so on. And what we want to do is we want to open these in AutoCAD here, okay? So if I go File, Open, just scroll into that folder there, and none of those files are showing up because our file type is DWG. I just need to change that to DXF, and I can open one of these. And let's open first of all the building footprint file, and you'll see these are just the outlines, just as a shape file from the buildings around the site. If I open up one of the other file contours in this instance, open that, we notice that this actually seems like quite a lot of a larger file. There's a lot more area around. We're not entirely sure where our site is. If we go into the elevation, we actually notice rather usefully all of our contours have been elevated, and you'll notice that this datum line here, the contours are much further above that, and that's because these contours are all being elevated with respect to some zero level. So if we zoom in, we'll notice numbers such as 93 and 93.5, 94, 94.5, so half meter contours that are about 90 odd meters above the ground. So these are our DXF files. If we have a look at Revit here, and we open a new architectural template, and we come to our Massing and Site tab. Here, remember when we created topo surfaces, we could place with a point, okay, and it's telling me that I need to be on my site level if I really should be doing this. But we could place points and we could make our site. We can also create from an import, okay, so if I just hover over this, it might show us a little bit more. We can select a DWG or another file format there where we can actually import the information and make our contours from that. So we're just going to cancel out of this, and we're going to look at inserting our CAD information we had before. So if we go to link our CAD file, and I will just scroll to that folder. Okay, it's asking for DWG. I can change that to a DXF, and I can bring in something like my contours. Right. It's asking, what layers or levels do I want to bring in. Okay, I'm just going to select all. I'm going to let it auto detect the import units at the moment, so I haven't actually checked what the units are, and placing at level 1 is okay. So I'll just let Revit do some thinking, and here's my site contour information. Now I'm going to link a couple more of those files. The building footprint, okay, and I'm going to link my curb files. Now, this is where I'm starting to see a problem. If I zoom in, you can see here are my building outlines, and maybe if I delete our contours, you can see this more clearly, and here are our curb outlines. Now, those two things aren't matching up, so we're going to have to do something with that information we've gotten from the GIS website to make it work properly. So let's hop back to AutoCAD, and let's look at the building footprint file, for instance. Now let's open one more. Let's open up our curb file. Now if I just select everything here and Control-C copy, and then come back to my building footprint and try and paste this, okay, it's going to ask to specify that insertion point. And again, we're not actually getting these to work properly and overlap properly. So there's another way that we can start to overlay these files. What I want to aim towards is actually a file something like my DWG drawing I've saved here, where I've got my contours, my building outlines, my curbs, and these have also got some of the impervious surfaces, all in one simple file that I can import into Revit. So, starting with my building footprint, what I need to do is I need to start to reference these images into each other. So, I need to look at my Insert tab here along the top, and again, much like Revit, we have these different tabs with different tools on them. And in the reference one here, we're going to attach one of our other files. So we can attach our curb file, for instance. And we can see what our issue is straight away. Okay, we can't attach a DXF file. So we're going to cancel out of that. And what we're going to do first of all is we're going to save all our DXF files as DWG files. Right, so just in that same folder here, I'm just going to change it to DWG. And because we're working in 2013, I can say it was a 2013 format. But if you're working in older versions, or find that sometimes versions don't work across into other software, for instance, you might have to save your DWG as an older file format. So I'll save, come to my contours, we'll save as DWG, and I'll come to my curb, and I'll just escape, and I'll save as a DWG. Okay, so now back to my building footprint. What I need to do is I need to attach now my DWGs. So I'm just going to select only DWGs, pick my contour. I'm going to check that the scale box is unchecked, so scale will be 1:1. The insertion point is unchecked, so I'll be using the origin. No rotation, leave everything else unchecked, and attachment is fine here. Now what I found is my contours, my curb file and my buildings are all in the same place, all in the right place. Now if I bring in my contours as well, same thing, no scale, insertion point unchecked, and OK, and zoom in. We see that this looks pretty sensible. The road being fairly straight, even contours. Okay, across my site, sort of flattens out a bit and does drop a bit across the site more rapidly as we come around the corner. So that all looks quite good. Right, so now we've got all our files in the same place. What we need to do is we need to trim some of this extra data that we don't need. So we can't just trim these files as they are, because they don't exist in our file. So first of all we need to bind them into our drawing, and then we need to work with them a little bit more so we can use them usefully. So with one of those references selected, I'm going to click on this external references tool, pick my contours, right click and click on bind, and I want to bind it to the file. And what that means now is that this file exists within the AutoCAD file. If I come to Home and to my layers, I'll notice that within this drawing my building footprint layers are there, and so are my new contour layers. Okay, so I'm going to do the same for my curbs. Now I could either come back to my Insert tab, and under Reference here, the little diagonal arrow in the corner, I can click on that and it brings up that same reference folder. Click on my curb and bind. Close this out. So now what you'll notice though is my curbs are all one object. So if I tried to trim these, I'd have some difficulty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explode. So I'm just going to type in explode, right? And you'll see as I start typing, I get options here, so I can click on explode. I'm going to select my curbs and hit spacebar for enter. Now all those curbs select individually. So I'm going to do the same for my contours. Explode, select my contours and hit enter. So now these are all more like individual lines that I can do something with. Okay, back to my layers. I'm just going to select 0 layer as the layer I'm drawing with, and I'm going to create a rectangle. So I'm going to come to my draw box here, and I'm going to select rectangle, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle sort of around our site here. Okay, so here's our site. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim away some of this information that I don't need. So again, I'm just going to type trim. I'm going to select the object I'm trimming to and hit enter, and then I'm just going to select the things that I want to trim to that object. And I could come along and I could click all these contour lines individually, or I could drag a box along as well, and that'll trim several objects at once. Okay. Then all I need to do is keep going, trim everything, delete the other objects that I don't need, and save my file out. You can see sometimes when we start selecting lots of things, the computer slows down quite a bit. So we just need to be careful that we're not selecting too much and crashing our machine. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Now all I need to do is just select some of this other stuff and delete it out of my file. So all this information that I don't need. I'm using a left crossing box. If I use a right crossing box, what it does is selects all the information inside. If I use a right to left drag, it selects everything that the box touches. So that's looking pretty clean, pretty tidy. And the reason I don't want any of this information outside is just because I want to keep my drawing nice and clean. So when I import into Revit, see, notice I have one more little bit of trimming left to do. That one there looks good. Again, a little bit more trimming left to do. And just deleting out that extra information. So now if I hit Z for zoom and type E for extents, I can just double check that I haven't got any information floating around in my drawing that I don't need, and I can save this drawing. So let's say my site information dash trim, and we'll save that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this information, we're going to insert this into Revit and build our site from it.